Hello, all you listeners out there, and welcome back to the LP podcast in the Lily's McDonald's studio. Today, I am joined by the one and only Coach Reid. He's right here on my left. My producer is Aaron, and today we're going to be doing an interview-esque kind of podcast to kind of put a person behind the name. Everybody knows Coach Reid, but does everybody know Coach Reid? So I just want to hear a little bit about you. What's your story?
Well, I've been in education for 30 years. I've been a head coach, varsity coach. This is my 27th year. My first year as a coach and teacher, I was at a middle school in Garland. I opened up a brand new school in 2003, Hendrickson High School in Pflugerville. We didn't have a varsity team yet. We just opened up with freshmen and sophomores. And then my first year here, I was the assistant principal. So those were the 3 years that I wasn't a head varsity coach. But I've been around education all my life. My dad was my coach and teacher. My mom was a teacher. Both my sisters are teachers, and they both married coaches. And my wife's family, all in education as well. Her dad was her coach. Her mom's in a teacher as well, and so my wife. And then her sister and brother-in-law. So it's entirely in the family. So that's kind of the story. We've been around it all our lives, and it's just something that we've really drawn to and something that we really love. And, being a coach, we've moved around the state quite a bit, but, we really found a good home and a good place here at LaPoynor.
Well, that's perfect. So in that question, not the question, but the answer there, you kind of gave a backstory about how basketball and coaching's in your whole family. And I just kind of want to ask, why basketball?
It goes back. I mean, I guess it goes back to my dad. My dad played basketball in high school. He was on a state championship team in 1956 from Amarillo. He played at Amarillo Paladura and went on to play college basketball. And, it kind of just started with him, went into coaching. And then, I was around it all since I was a little kid. And, both my sisters played for a state championship back in 1980 in Dumas. The team I played for, we got to the regional tournament, didn't quite make it. But, there's been the interesting little side note to all that is since 1950s, there's been a member of our family at the state tournament in every decade. 1956, my dad's team played. 1969, he coached the state championship at Kerrville-Tivy. 1970 and 71, he coached the state championship at Dumas. 1980, my sisters won. Then goes 1990, my dad coached another state championship. Then in 2003, we got to the state tournament when I was coaching at Port Aransas. And then my niece, my sister's daughter, played at the state tournament in 2012 at Liberty Hill. And then obviously the last 2 years here, we got to the state tournament. And so that, that's kind of a neat little side note to how long we've been around it, our family, and the success we've been very blessed and fortunate to have. So it's one of those things where it's just been basketball all the time. And, it's really a wonderful sport. And, there's so much more to it than just coaching the X's and O's and inside the lines. You get to have hopefully a positive influence on young men, young women as they are transitioning into college and on to the rest of their lives.
So you were saying you played for your dad, right?
Yes.
So that kind of relates to how, court plays for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also coach my other son, Jace. He's a senior at Oklahoma Wesleyan. He went and played college basketball for 3 years. Decided not to play his senior year, which I totally understand. When I played college, I just made 2 years. I was like, I'm done. It's a job. It's completely different than it is in high school. But yes, so in Sydney, my daughter, she's always there, being one of the managers, part of the team. So it's really a neat thing. My wife, Miss Coach Reid, so she's always been around keeping the stats for the team. She coaches herself, but it's one of those things where it's just an entire family situation that we just love basketball. And I know it's tough. I played for my dad. I know how difficult that is. It never stops. When we leave school, the other boys get to go home, and they probably don't hear their parents complaining about it as much as I do when I go, home court, and Jace and even Sydney, they heard a lot of stuff when they get to go home. It's they don't get to get away from it. So it's a difficult situation, but it's also a wonderful situation. I mean, I remember Court, being at practice when, he was as little as he could be, just being around the game. So, yeah, it's a great situation, a great family bonding time. It gets a little stressful at times, obviously, but, it's a really neat thing that our family can grow and bond around.
So you could, in a way, say that the Reid family tree has roots around the hoop?
Oh, yeah.
I just thought of that in my mind. I thought it was
most
funny.
Most definitely.
This podcast is brought to you today by Young's Hair and Lashes by Leslie Young at Loft 175 in Athens. If you want to get a normal man's haircut like me and not like the hideous woman that's about to come on after me, go to get your haircut by Leslie Young at Loft 175.
This podcast today is brought to you by Young's Hair and Lashes by Leslie Young at Loft 175. If you want hair like mine, I mean, it's fantastic, as you can see, you need to go get your hair cut by Miss Leslie. She does a fantastic job. If you need a haircut, you can call an appointment at this number right here. I hope they did a thing. I don't know if they did that thing. Get your haircut.
So we're going to, back a bit from, up in your face questions, We just want to know, what's your pregame routine? Like, what's a significant, unique pregame thing you do that you don't think anyone does? It's like a tradition.
Yeah, I've been around it so long. So many games that I played in and coached in, and it's really one of those things where I guess the superstition is try not to be superstitious, if that makes sense. A lot of people have superstitions that they do exactly the same thing. I kind of like to just get in the coach's office before a game and kind of just relax a little bit, fill out the book, for the stats, make sure everything's ready to go. I think that's probably my biggest routine is just make sure all the logistics are ready to go. The gym's set up, the floor's swept, the book is filled out, the stats are ready to go, and then uniforms. I'm very particular about the uniforms, how they hang, ordered that they go in, that way you never lose them. And it's just, I guess the logistics is probably my biggest thing. It's not like I got to have a certain meal or I have to have a certain drink before the game. I'll drink a Diet Dr. Pepper, I'll drink a Diet Coke Zero, whatever. But, it's just kind of one of those things where I try not to put that on there, because if you can't do something and then all of a sudden you feel like something's missing, and you feel like you just feel off. So I try not to put too much pressure on that piece.
Yeah, so you don't use it as like a crutch or anything.
Correct. And like I said, the biggest thing to that is what happens if you can't do that. Something else gets in the way. And, so that's one of those things where you want to try to make it, yes, as routine as possible, but you don't want to have to be relying on something to happen to make you feel right, to make sure you're engaged.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the situation with my pregame.
So game day in LP, you could say, is pretty uniform.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
So let's talk basketball culture. How, mass media culture around just the sport basketball, the NBA and all that. I want to hear what your take is from when you started playing basketball on how the culture has formed around it.
Well, I think, basketball's, I look back at my dad's, I've seen clips or seen video of his actual state championship game in 1956. And, the lane, the free throw lane was smaller. It actually looked, they call it the key, and nobody really understands why. Well, now it's because it's wider. The lane is wider. Then it was more narrow and they had the jump circle at the top, and so it actually kind of looked like a key. That's a change. When I was in high school, the three-point line was actually added my junior year. So I played 2 years of varsity basketball without a three-point line. So that's a change that has happened. The three-point line has changed. Now you're always getting changes with the fouls. Foul counts. Now they've kind of made another change where there's no more 1-and-1s. It's always a 2-shot foul if you get over 5 or on the shot. So there's been some changes there. I think the biggest thing, though, that the three-point line, the proficiency in which the players can make three-pointers, especially at the professional level, it used to be centered around a big man. I date myself, but I remember when Michael Jordan was drafted, and you kind of see it on I think it's The Last Dance that they did a kind of 10-part documentary on, but they were saying that there's no way a team can be built around a 6'6" player. They have to have a 7-footer, and that's who the game is built and centered around. Well, he changed that, obviously. And then you have Steph Curry that changed everything that's going on now with the three-point line and kind of more open and more wide type of game. And you don't have as many dominant big men. The big men can play on the outside. Dirk Nowitzki was one of the ones that kind of changed that. But like I said, it's more of an open game, but it's still the same thing. The goal's still the same height. The court in general is still the same length, and it's more. There's a little bit more fast-paced play, which is what we like to do. But it's still one of those things where it's still just kind of the same game, but there's been some changes that have opened it up a little bit more.
So, as a coach, we want to know what your core values are and how you work with your players to form bonds with them.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we want to be able to – I want the boys to be able to face adversity and be able to work through that. I think, whether it's in a game, in a practice, they're going to face adversity. I want to be able to teach some of those things that they're going to be able to take throughout their lives. It's one of those things that's really everybody's going to face adversity at some point in their life, whether some people look at it as a minor adversity, they didn't do well on a test, to something that could be as high as, losing a family member or something like that. You're going to have those difficult times in your life. Can you keep moving forward? Can you keep doing that? So I think that's one of our big pieces that we do that. I want the boys to play with grit. I want them to be tough. I want them to play fast. We have a, conditioning drill. It's really not, it's more of a mental toughness drill that we use. It's called the Dirty Dozen. A lot of the boys know it. It's pretty extensive as far as conditioning and running. But it's kind of what our program is centered around. Within that 15 minutes that it takes to perform it, there's going to be adversity. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hurting. Can you keep working through all of that? And that kind of just builds our stuff. And as far as developing relationships with the players, it's one of those things where I've always been an old man, as my wife likes to say it. I started being a head coach when I was probably 24, 25 years old, and I was coaching guys that were 6 years young, boys that were 6 years younger than me. And so, but I had to kind of draw that line real quick. So it wasn't a friendship, to bond. I was more looking at it like looked at it as I'm their parent. There wasn't cell phones when I came into coaching. There was none of that. So we had to be, the coaches at the time had to be the parent whenever we left the school. They didn't know where the kids were exactly. There wasn't there wasn't a tracker. There wasn't, find my iPhone or whatever it is that they, find out where the kids are. They couldn't track the speed of the bus or anything. So you had to be the parent. And I think that's a big change in today's culture with the onset of the iPhones and social media and things that, it's tough for younger coaches to have that separation, because the parents are always there and they know where the kids are, which is a great thing. That can be a great thing, but also, it kind of made me, they call it in loco parentis, which means that I'm the parent when their parents aren't around. So I really developed that early in my career. Now, and so I treat the boys, and obviously I'm the age now that I am probably older than most of their parents. We have obviously Court, that is a junior, and he's our youngest. So, that relationship there is kind of more like a parent situation, but also want to have that bond where they'll feel free to come talk to me, and when they have difficulties and they have troubles, and get some extra guidance. So that's kind of the relationship in which I'm trying to build with the team.
So we've got Coach Reid, parent Reid, mentor Reid, guide Reid, all of it. You just do it all.
Well, I think that's just part of it's just part of it. I mean, when you're with the boys as much as you're with them, with the team as much as you're with them, whether it's a boys team, girls team, whatever, you're going to be in those different roles. You can't just be in one particular role, and you just hope that you're providing a little bit of positive influence. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's all sunshine and roses all the time. There's going to be some times when you're going to have to challenge them and make them push through, because, they have to do something that maybe is going to hurt a little bit. That's going to be difficult. Never ask them to do anything that I don't think they can do, but that doesn't mean I don't ask them to do something they don't want to do. And so that's where you have to kind of figure that out and kind of figure that motivation out. And each one has a motivation that's a little bit different.
So the job of being a coach is more like a flow. It's not like stable. You're more in a static flow of just jumping around.
Right. I mean,
different roles.
Right. And it's one of those exactly. And it's, and it's the same thing as teaching a class and that kind of stuff. You're just going to find yourself in different situations, and you have to react and be able to keep the end game in mind. Where do we want these guys to be? How do we want them to, when they leave here, when they leave the program, either they decide they don't want to play anymore, or they decide that they graduate and they move forward. Have you taken them from where they were and been able to give some positive influence that they can take with them further?
Yeah, so you just got to build them up.
Right. I think that, yes, most definitely.
So, Ty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's time for the Fast Five.
I do think it is time for the Fast Five. Coach, we're going to give you 5 quick questions that you have to answer as fast as possible. No thinking about your answer. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I believe so.
All righty. Who is your favorite basketball player of all time?
Oh, I'm dating myself again. I've got probably top 3 that I can think of.
Let's hear them.
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Shaquille O'Neal. I think I got to play against Shaquille O'Neal twice, so that was pretty.
What was that like?
That was a lot of fun. We were both in high school. We graduated the same year, so it was a pretty amazing experience.
Now, I know we touched on this earlier with your tradition, but what's your favorite game day snack?
Favorite game day snack? I guess probably just a Coke Zero. That'd probably be the best thing. Coke Zero.
Coke Zero? I heard that earlier. I agree. Diet Coke is not as good as Coke Zero. Who is the most overrated basketball player of all time?
Most overrated? Wow. LeBron.
Really?
Yeah.
I was actually expecting to hear like a Steph or something like that.
No, I think the Steph changed the game.
He did.
He changed the game with 3-point. He made everybody. I think he changed the game more than LeBron. I think and I understand when I say that LeBron's a great player. Understand that. I mean, he's a great player. But I just don't think I don't think he changed the game, and I think those other guys did.
What is your music guilty pleasure? I
don't know if it's guilty. It's 80s music. I'm not guilty about it. I love it, so I'm not guilty about it. But I get a few eye rolls in class if I put it on. But that's the way they're just gonna have to live with it.
Like, what genre of 80s music are you talking about?
You got everything from hair bands to rock to ballads to the synthesizer pop music. I mean, it goes everything. I don't listen to too much country, but George Strait would be up there. Yeah, George Strait would be up there if I was, doing that. So, yeah.
Finally, who's your favorite kid? You got Sydney, you got Jace, and you got Court.
Well, I'll give it to this. So we have a family group text, and Court named it, Mom and Dad's favorite Court. So he named it that at first. We changed the name of it eventually, but it depends of who you ask. If you ask Jason Sydney, it's Court. And if you ask if you ask Court, he'd probably say himself too, but that's just Court. I don't know if he really realizes that or not. So, it's Jace is fixing to be off the payroll, so he'll be he's probably ranking up there probably higher than the other ones right now because he's getting married in May, so he's getting off the payroll. So that'll probably make him my favorite.
Perfect. One less dependent. All right, Coach. Here's our final question of the whole interview. Are we going to make it to state? Are we going to the big game? All righty, you listeners. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the LP Podcast. I'm your host, Ty Walger. This is our producer,
Aaron Cook.
And that was your coach, varsity boys coach, Jim Reid. Like and subscribe.
And see you next time.
We'll see you next time.